Hi, I'm Chris James, and you're watching Healthy Alternative. Today, I want to talk about the benefits of Michael, and today we're going to be talking about...
Today we'll be making one of my favorite soups.
Welcome to the JR72 Challenge.
I am Animated Mel, and I am your mental and wellness coach for
As always, perfection is not needed, but consistency.
We must first lovingly accept what is. You can't heal a body you hate.
No matter what, you have to put yourself first. If you're not aware that there's change that needs to be made, how can you fix it? This information is fire.
I had to come to the realization that, number one, I was an emotional eater.
We need to accept the decisions that we make, because if we can do that, then we have the power to change them. You came here so that way you can start moving into your heaven path. Once again, thank you very much. I appreciate it. Yeah, there we go. There we go. Let's get into it. What's going on, AJ? Hope everyone's doing well. Hope everyone's having a great evening. I know it's a little bit later than what we normally do, but I've been a little busy. I've been grinding a little bit, and this was the first time that I had available to get this call done. So we're going to jump into it. We're going to talk a little bit. I want to go a little bit of a different route this evening. As always, we'll start off and we'll talk about the obvious. Number one, we're going to be talking a little bit about the R72. Not a little bit, but yeah, kind of a little bit. We're going to talk about the R72, but what we really want to begin to touch base on is why we're talking about the R72. So as you all know, or as you may not know, and we'll talk about this again towards the end of this lesson, but R72 Challenge has been announced and it will launch on June 7th. So that'll be the date that we actually do our first intro live, where you'll get to meet the coaches. There's a lot of people that have recently joined the AHA family just due to the YouTube algorithm and all the hard work Chris James has been doing. So for everyone that's new, I want to just quickly introduce myself. If you don't know me, my name is Stephen Michael. I'm one of the mental and emotional wellness coaches of AHA. A little bit of my background: I started off at about 400 pounds, 397 to be exact. And I've had quite the roller coaster ride of a journey. I've lost in total of about 200 pounds throughout my entire journey. And I've been able to maintain a little over 80% of that, once again, up and down over the last 8 years, 7 or 8 years, give or take, right in that area. So the reason that a lot of people are kind of here is that there was a video that had come out of beginning of my journey, which I don't know, at this point, it might be at 1 million views. We were very close the last time I looked. It's been like 2 or 3 years since I looked. So that's a little bit about me. If you join the R72, we'll talk a little bit more. You'll get to know me a lot more. But just if you were just used to seeing Chris and you're like, who is this guy? Chris is my brother, and I'm one of the coaches with AJ. So periodically, you'll see me pop in, particularly during times of challenges or just things that we have going on. I'll pop up. So I just wanted to, first of all, just say thank you guys all for being here, for all of our new people. And then, of course, for all of our friends and family and all of our cousins that have been here for a while. It's great to see you all. I do see some familiar names, all right, but I also see a lot of new names as well. So, but if you have not looked into the AHA R72 weight loss challenge, if you go into the description box of this video, there is a link for you to pop in and join. So feel free to join us. But tonight, we're not necessarily going to be talking about a lot of like weight loss, which is so interesting because that's kind of the title of the video. But when I say weight, right, and I did this kind of intentionally, but when I wrote weight loss, I put it in quotation marks. Now you might be asking, Stephen, why would you put that in quotation marks? That's a great question. I'm glad that you asked. Well, I put it in quotation marks because weight is not necessarily just physical. There's spiritual weight, there's emotional weight, right? And there's physical weight. There's different types of weight. And these different types of weights can hold us back from moving forward on our journey, right? So we're going to jump around a little bit. We're not going to be here super long because once again, it is a little bit on the later side for those on the East Coast. And this is a 2-part series. So just want to give you guys a little bit of heads up about that. So part 2 is going to be tomorrow. So we're going to do part 1 tonight, and we're going to do part 2 tomorrow. So make sure that you lock in, stay tuned, but we won't be here super long. We're going to just kind of get into things a little bit here tonight because tomorrow's going to be a little bit longer. I was hitting the R72 for a couple weeks. You were impatient. That's hilarious. I want to join the family. I mean, listen, if you're watching a live, whether the algorithm brought you here or whatever, then you are already part of the AHA family. Just make sure you hit that subscribe button, join the AHA communities. It's completely free. It's our version of Facebook, essentially. And it's a place that we can kind of talk and have communication uncensored, unfeathered. And it allows us to really reach the community in a way that like Facebook, Instagram, and such won't allow us to. So make sure that you join the AHA communities. It's a great way to join. So let's Big Rob from the Heights. What up, Rob? So let's get into this a little bit, right? We're going to talk a little bit about getting back to baseline with the R72. And I have a little presentation. So once again, if you've never seen me before, I teach things a little bit differently. One of the things about me is that when I was growing up, I've always wanted to be a teacher. And originally I was going to be a history teacher, and I ended up getting a scholarship to college for music. I was a vocal performer, and I had a vocal performance scholarship. So I ended up going for music instead of going for teaching. And lo and behold, one of the things that happened is that life happens, right? When you're supposed to do something, you're supposed to do it, right? It's like with love and relationships. When they say if something you love, you let it go. If it's meant to be, it'll come back, right? And teaching was always something that was on my heart and my mind. And I think obviously because both my parents were teachers, so it was something that was always around. I just wanted to do it. And lo and behold, I ended up now teaching wellness. So there's like different little teaching tools and techniques and stuff that I use, between clients and through our lives here. So I put together a little presentation, nothing crazy, but I've learned through the years that a lot of people learn in different ways. And some people will learn just by hearing something, and then they'll learn it and they'll be like, okay, great. And then other people learn by visualization. So even if I'm talking about something, or even if someone is talking about something, even if you see almost the same thing, but it's visual, they can grasp it a little bit better. And that's something about being a teacher or being a leader in whatever it is that you have going on in life, right? Even if you're a parent, which is something that we're going to talk a little bit about tonight as well. But if you understand how the people that you are trying to reach learn, if you understand how things that you would teach them or try to impart upon them, how they learn, it will make it a lot easier on you as a leader or a teacher or a guide to then reach your own people, friends, family, children, whatever the case may be, if you have a general idea of how they learn. So that's why I like to do a little bit of both. I like to do a little bit of visual as well as a little bit of, well, not a little bit of audio. You're going to get this audio one way or the other. But I also like to add a little bit of visual as well. So let me go ahead and pull this up for you guys. And we're going to talk about how to reach baseline with the R72. Now, let me just double check, make sure you guys can see this. Cool. All right, looks good. All right, so how to reach baseline with the R72. Now, you may be asking, Stephen, what does that even mean, right? Well, that's a great question. I'm glad you guys asked. What is baseline, right? So let's just start off really broad and then let's get into this, right? Also, something that I usually suggest when you come to my lessons, you should have like an AHA notepad, right? AHA does offer like notebooks. If you don't have one, get one. You can go onto the AHA website and grab one. If not, that's fine. Get a pen and paper, or just get one on Amazon, whatever. And I would absolutely begin a a journal or a notepad just of our type of content, because there's a lot of different things that we will say, and there's a lot of different coaches that you'll see over time that will teach things, and you'll learn, whether it's through the premium accountability membership, through videos with Chris James, through lives with me and Chris. All of that information is valuable. It's invaluable, and a lot of times you'll come back to it later, and you may write something down that you don't realize how important it is, and then 3 months, 6 months, a year down the line, you're like, wait a minute, Chris talked about that, Stephen talked about this, let me go back in my notes. And then now that you've grown a little bit, it makes a lot more sense, and now it clicks for you, right? I do see the question here. I will do my best to try to check the chat and try to answer some of these questions at the end of our lesson, but for now, we're going to kind of get into the lesson though. All right. Yeah, I see. There's two of them. All right. So definition, what is baseline, right? So if you just look at the definition of baseline, a baseline is a standard initial starting point or set of data used as a reference for comparison, right? It provides a foundation to measure changes, track progress, or evaluate the success of something over time. Now, we can look at this in a lot of different ways, right? Now, let's look at this from a standpoint of health, right? I want to use the first two, which is a standard or initial starting point, right? Our baseline of our health is a God-given right that we should have before conception even begins. Now, I want you to think about this for a second. Oh yeah, you're definitely in school. I want you to think about this for a second. A lot of times what begins to happen is that I will have clients, or I'll be working with somebody or have a conversation with somebody. And one of the first things that I ask them is like, why are we here? Why are we meeting today? You reached out, you needed help, you needed assistance. I said, why are we here? What's the whole point of this, right? And 9 times out of 10, it has something to do with saying, I want to be healthy or I want to lose weight, right? And that's my goal, which is fine. That's not bad, right? As we continue this conversation, there's something that I had over the years began to create, which is, I mean, I didn't create this, but I did create the structure for what I'm about to talk about. It's called your why, right? Now, I didn't create that concept. That's, obviously that's been around for a long time. It's our motivation, our reason for doing something, the driving force that truly pushes us on a day-to-day, making decisions and just doing everything that we do. Okay. That's your why. Now, when we're thinking about baseline, when it comes to our health, I heard Chris say this, a little while ago, and it never left me. It's always stuck with me, right? What we are asking for, what we are trying to do here, is not something that is groundbreaking, right? Like I don't want you guys to like necessarily put fasting on this pedestal, like, oh, it's the end all be all. Like this is the thing that's going to just change my life. And then as soon as I hit 150 pounds, or as soon as I get to 170 pounds, my whole life is going to be so much better. I hate to be the bearer of bad news. That's simply just not true. Now, take it from somebody who has gotten down, who's almost lost half of his body weight, and has got very close to his end goal. And I can tell you what, I realized during that process that losing weight was not the end goal, right? We are so far away from where we should be. We see being healthy as the end goal. We're really being healthy is genuinely and truly the starting point. We are so far behind the 8 ball with our health. And this is not necessarily just you, everyone that under the sound of my voice. This is humans in general, right? In 2026, we are so far behind that we see just being healthy, just being at a normal place is the pinnacle. And that's not true. That's baseline, right? I want you to think of this. This came to me a little bit earlier. I want you to think about a seed, right? Now, this is all going to make sense here in a second, okay? Stay with me, right? Think about a seed or conception, right? Or of a seed. What you're doing is you're going to take that seed, you're going to till the dirt. You're then going to put fertilizer in. You're going to do all these things to prepare the earth for what you're about to try to grow. You then are going to take that seed and you're going to plant it. Depending on the seed and what you're planting, you may plant it shallow, you may plant it very deep. But you're going to put it in the ground, you're going to cover it, and you're going to begin to water it. You're going to show it love. You're going to give it all the things that it needs, and then it is going to, over time, begin to germinate, and it's going to then grow. Right? This is what a healthy crop does. Stay with me here. Now, when you plant that seed, now we're not talking about something like potatoes, which grow downward, but even when they grow downward, there's still a shoot that comes up, right? The whole process of planting that seed is for that seed to then begin to grow underneath the earth, and then it then breaks through the earth or the dirt in the soil, and then it continues to grow and flourish and produce a fruit of sort. Or there's a when I say a fruit, I mean the flowering part of that plant, which some are call vegetables as well, right? The whole purpose of planting is so that way then you can then grow out from under the foundation or the dirt as the baseline. And then from then you can now flourish and grow. A lot of us are still living under the dirt when it comes to our health. And even though we are growing, we have not even crossed the threshold where we are now above the dirt, where now we can truly flourish and then provide our fruits to the world. Come on now. Don't let that go over your head. If you think that where you are in life right now is great, if you think because you make good money and because you live in a nice house and because you generally feel okay, if you think that you are flourishing and your health is not like peak health, you have no idea what you are truly capable of because you are still living under the dirt. The person that I told you guys the story on purpose, right? When I very first started my wellness journey, I was a decent person. I was a good human. I was married. I had 2 kids at the time, right? I mean, I had a nice car. My credit was going well, right? I mean, things were going all right. It wasn't until I really lost like 150 plus pounds. I changed my diet. I was juicing. I was fasting. I was eating raw. It wasn't until that point I truly began to flourish and produce fruit. When you produce fruit as a human being, you then are able to affect others in so many ways because others can now utilize your gifts for their own betterment. Come on, man. Are you hearing me? How difficult is it for you to support and help other people if you can't support and help yourself? Hello from Texas. What's good? We in DFW, right? If you can't support and help yourself, how are you going to help and support other people? You're a parent. Oh man, we about to get into it. I'm a parent, so just let me just say that off rep. So nothing I'm going to say is meant to pull down or hurt or anything like that. This is educational purposes only. You hear that YouTube algorithm? It's educational purposes only. Or I'm sorry, entertainment purposes only, right? I told the truth the first time, and I had to come back and switch it up. This entertainment purposes only, YouTube, right? If you're a parent and you are struggling within yourself, if you're struggling with your finances, if you're struggling with your own health, if you're struggling just to get energy and get out of bed, how are you supposed to be a good parent to the children you're supposed to be raising? Huh. If you think that clothing them, feeding them, getting them to school, right? Just these normal things. If you think that that's being a great parent, that's baseline. You have a responsibility because you decided to have intercourse and plant a seed or have a seed planted in you. And then that seed now grew. It broke through the baseline. What of the baseline of what we would consider pregnancy? Now the baby is here, and now the baby is growing. You have a responsibility to care for that seed. How are you going to do that if you can barely care for yourself? Do you think that you're giving 100%? Do you think that you're truly giving the best that you can give if you barely have anything for you? No. 100% one day is not 100% the next day. Think about it. When you go into work, you work an 8.5, 9-hour shift. Let's say you got 2 little breaks and a 30-minute, right? So you work a normal shift. When you go into work and when you leave work, do you have the same amount of energy? I don't care what field you work in, the answer is typically going to be no. Now, you may have more energy. You might have gone in and you just woke up and you barely got there, and now you have more energy after work, right? Or for most people, you go into work at a normal time. You wake up a little early, you eat breakfast, you have your coffee, whatever, yada, 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 right? And then you go in and you get off work, you're like, man, I'm tired. Do you think 100% is the same when you were tired versus 100% when you've only been in it for an hour or two? If you deal in customer service, when you're dealing with customers, if it's like the first couple of customers that you're dealing with and you're in a great mood and you have plenty of energy, do you think that the level of customer service is the exact same from the first person to the person that comes in and has an attitude and it's now 5 minutes till you're supposed to clock out? Do you think that 100% is the same? No. The baseline of our health is not what we think it is, right? Now, they can look at health and they can look at baseline in a lot of different ways, right? You have physical markers, which include like body composition, right? Body fat mass, things like that, right? You have vital signs, right? Which you're talking about, like your resting heartbeat, right? Your blood pressure, your cholesterol levels. You have digestive markers. You have sleep markers, mental and emotional health markers, things that like they psychology look at these things and say, well, do you have healthy relationships? How well do they handle stress? These are like mental and emotional markers, right? Your immune health. How often do you get sick, right? Your metabolic health, right? Do you have stable energy throughout meals? Do you have trouble losing weight? Are you constantly hungry, right? Then you have fitness, recovery. There's all these different types of markers that you can use to measure your physical health and your physical well-being. A lot of times people will sit and they will say, well, I'm generally a healthy person. Well, let me be honest with you. There's a very big difference between being healthy and disease-free. Let that sink in. There's a very big difference between being healthy and disease-free. Now, if you look at the definition of healthy, it generally doesn't really give you much, right? But in totality, if you continue to do a little bit of research and you really kind of break it down a little bit, because if you look up the definition of healthy, it just means in good health. That's the definition of healthy. In good health. What does that mean? Right? But then if you continue to look up healthy and you continue to get a little more information, you realize that when it comes to organs, because you can look up organ health, you'll realize that organ health means free of disease, right? It has a high level of function and it has the ability to detox. That's what healthy organs mean. When you have healthy organs, you have healthy organ systems. When you have healthy organ systems, you have a healthy body, right? It is the ability to detox. If you didn't learn something, you learned something right there, right? That's really what healthy means. So if you're struggling, if the body is struggling to detoxify certain organs, can we really consider ourselves healthy, right? But baseline or our health or being healthy should be considered baseline. It is the God-given right that we should have before we are even conceived. Now, there are some people that think, well, I was born and I was healthy, but were you? Were you born and healthy? Well, let's look at it, right? Now, why do we not start our health at baseline? Why do we start under the ground, in the dirt, as this seed? Well, there's a lot of different reasons, right? But I gave you 3 here, right? Number 1, our development is adapted for the womb rather than the outside world. So when you start to look a little bit at like babies and you start to look at how they begin and the process of conception and as it goes into the growth of the placenta and all these things, right? All of these things are formed essentially by the mother. It's a lot of work that the mothers have to do. And, obviously without them, without women and without men, but obviously without our women, then we would not be able to procreate, right? But our development as babies, we develop to survive in the womb, not survive in the outside world in the beginning, right? So we are not coming out of the body with the ability or ready to just simply survive everything, right? We grow inside of the womb so that way we can survive the growth process. Right. Number 2, babies are born with passive immunity passed from their mother, but their immune systems are inexperienced. We're starting behind the 8 ball. Another reason is because we are getting passive immunity that is passed down, or our immune system is not even of our own. Don't let that go over your head. Hear me. Our immune system is not even of our own. This is going to continue to make a little more sense as we go through. It is the immune system that our mothers have developed over periods of years and years and years of them being alive, and they will pass us a portion of it that will allow us to then enter into the world with some level of protection against bacterias and viruses and diseases and all these things, such and such and such, right? But our immune system is inexperienced. It hasn't had the ability to then fight off or start working for itself or anything of that nature, right? Which is one of the reasons why babies need so much care. This is why when you go outside and you have a baby and it's really cold, you need to wrap them up. Right? This is why you don't want people hugging all on your babies and stuff when they're first born, because there's bacteria, there's diseases, there's all these things that a normal human has when they have their immune system. They don't have any problem dealing with these things and they won't cause you any issues. But for a baby, your immune system is inexperienced. The most damning one, right? So the thing that causes the most stress and the most the biggest reason why we start behind the 8 ball is that it is common for babies to be born with illness, tons of toxins, and of the worst thing that you can be born with, everyone is born with them, unfortunately, is heavy metals at a high level from birth. Now, that one is probably the most important. Heavy metals at a high level from birth. There are studies that have been done on placentas, and they have found there to be high levels of arsenic, mercury. I mean, you name it. There's tons of different heavy metals that are in children at birth. Now, if you continue to do your research and you look up the problem with heavy metals and why they are so bad, then you'll find that a lot of heavy metals, like people with ADHD or people with like neurological diseases or disorders, you'll find that they have high levels of heavy metals in their system. You don't even have to have a diagnosable disorder, right? But heavy metals in the body are terrible. They're one of the hardest things, if not the hardest thing for the body to detox. There are things that have been introduced into our world synthetically that should not be there, right? These things are coming from our environment. They're in our food. They're in our air. Let's go back to the soil a little bit. When you look back and you start studying history and you start looking at, people will say, well, our ancestors ate this, our ancestors ate that, so it's got to be good for me now. Well, I mean, look at how our food has changed. I mean, if you've never looked up like watermelon or bananas, things like that, and you look up the origin of them or how they're supposed to look, bananas had seeds, right? They call them burro bananas now, but even burro bananas currently, modern day, don't particularly have seeds. Most of them don't, right? You can find seeded bananas, but they're hard to find. A lot of times you got to be in tropical areas or, like you have like places like Miami Fruit Box and stuff like that. You can find these type of things, but they're grown in exotic countries and such, right? The soil has been robbed of its richness, of its nutrients, right? These are all things that we should be getting from birth from our mother. These are all things that we should be getting, but unfortunately, and it's not their mother's fault, it is the world that we live in. Due to the amount of people that we have in the world, due to the waste, the food waste that we have, there is the agricultural boom that has taken place over the last centuries. The way that we harvest crops, the way that we regrow them, we never give the soil a chance to recover. There was a story that I heard about. I believe it was in Thailand. There was a beach where somebody went, and this popular influencer went there and talked about this beach and made it super popular. And then for over the next like 7 years or so, the beach was always packed. There was this coral reef. All these fish were there. And then over the years, the tourism had killed the coral reef. All the fish had left, and it turned in. I mean, the beach still looked beautiful, but all of the fish, the entire ecosystem had basically died, right? Because we as humans, we overuse, we overconsume. Everyone wanted to get to this beach, right? What did the Thailand government do? They closed the beach and they artificially replanted natural coral and such. And after they planted it, they closed the beach and they left it closed. I think it was for like 10 years, something like that. You couldn't go for like 10 years. Every once in a while, they would check back on it. 10 years later, they go back and they compare baseline or what it was to where it is now. The entire ecosystem had totally rebuilt itself. All the fish were back. The nutrients were back in the water. The coral reef had completely recovered. Right? Why? Because they were able to just leave it alone. And our food, our air, all of these things, we overuse so much, we can't leave anything alone. So then we become deficient in a lot of nutrients. We become deficient in our vitamins, our minerals. There are things that we need in order to survive this world properly, and we don't have them when we come out. And a lot of times we're not eating all the right things. We're being taught to eat the wrong things, and we're starting behind the 8 ball. We're barely even in the ground and covered up. But you talk about we want to flourish. People think that, I'm the healthiest I've ever been when I was born. Absolutely not. That's not even a pinnacle of adult health. It's not even close. You're the most vulnerable when you're a baby, right? The last thing that I didn't mention, and it was intentional. We don't start at base health. I'm sorry. We do not start our health at baseline because of how we're raised. This is a good point. What you're talking about right now sounds exactly what food is doing to our microbiome. You're absolutely correct. This is absolutely correct. Very good point. Our microbiome is, oh my God, don't even get me started. When you want to talk about leaky gut, okay, you have good bacteria and you have bad bacteria. Okay. What a lot of people don't know is that you actually have more bacteria or non-human bacteria in your body than you have with human bacteria or cells. Huh? Yes, you are more bacteria than you are human. Let that sink in for a second. There is that much bacteria inside of your body. Now, I'm not saying this is bad bacteria. You need this bacteria, but you're more bacteria than you are human cells or human bacteria. What does that mean? That means that you need to treat that microbiome, right? Or your microbiota even better than you need to treat your human cells because they make up more than human cells. When we are constantly bombarding our gut with trash, when you don't feed it non-soluble fiber, your good bacteria eats non-soluble fiber. If you don't eat fiber, you are destroying your gut. It needs it to grow and proliferate. And if it doesn't, bad bacteria will. This is where you get candida overgrowth. This is where you get what's it called? Small intestinal SIBO, small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, right? Well, there's a lot of ways that you can kind of work on leaky gut. One of the ways is aloe vera juice and probably a nice juice fast, right? There's different ways you work on it, right? But what's happening is there's a barrier that goes between your gut, which is where good bacteria is housed, and then you have a very, very thin mucosal barrier where bad bacteria is housed or other bacteria that should not come in contact with each other. And then basically over time, you have these pen-sized holes that are actually more small than pen size. They're microscopic, these little holes that then allow these little bacteria to sneak through. And it causes irritation in the gut. Stephen, I would say we have more bad bacteria. The individual person may have more bad bacteria, but what I'm talking about is just bacteria in general. I'm saying you have more bacteria, good and bad in totality, than like human cells. Now, everyone's a little bit different, right? I would definitely not say that there's certain people that have more bad bacteria. Bad bacteria is not, for most people, it doesn't take much. But it depends on where it's located, right? If you have bad bacteria in your small intestine, that's not good. When you start getting certain bacteria in the small intestine where it's not supposed to be, what it starts doing is it starts eating your food that you have then digested that should be going down into this through the colon, and where it should be feeding your good bacteria, and then it's getting eaten and broken down by bad bacteria, and then it starts to proliferate, and this is where you get SIBO, right? You have a candida overgrowth. A lot of times people look at candida and they look at it like, oh my God, candida is so bad. Candida is actually a good bacteria. Did you know that? A lot of times people think of candida and they're like, oh, candida is bad. It's not. It's a naturally occurring, it's a good bacteria. The problem is that candida will overgrow and it's so resilient, it then starts eating the good bacteria's food for itself. It gets a little greedy. So then we got to bring it in check, right? But you don't want to kill candida off in total. But if you have an overgrowth, then you need to decrease the level of candida in the body. Okay. So a lot of times people think that certain bacteria is bad and it's not, right? But everything in the body is about balance. The human body is very interesting. The human body is all about balance. It's the same thing with cortisol. People, when you talk about hormones, the number one hormone that people talk about is cortisol. Probably number two is like testosterone, things of that nature. And cortisol gets such a bad rap, but cortisol is not necessarily bad. It is when cortisol stays high for too long, it becomes greedy, right? It starts to wear us down. Now we're not going to get into that tonight. We're not talking about hormones tonight in particular, But cortisol in and of itself is not bad. You need cortisol, but you don't need it high all the time. Same thing with insulin. You need insulin, but you don't need it high all the time. Same thing with testosterone. As men, we need testosterone, but you don't need it high all the time, right? If you have too much, that's a problem. If you got too little, that's another problem. With women, it's estrogen, right? When you have this imbalance, that's the issue. So when people say, oh, I need to lower this or I need to lower that or increase this, well, no, what you need to do is find balance, right? That's the most important thing. Should I drink soluble fiber every day? I mean, if you're using it as a supplement, sure. But you really should be getting your fiber from your foods, right? Your fruits and vegetables are going to have soluble and insoluble fiber in them. I got to keep moving on because we're getting behind. Not really. All right. Why is the age of 7 so important, right? And here's the thing. This is where we're. This is. I want to make sure I transition is right. What are the things that cause why we don't start health at baseline, right? The last one was how we are raised, right? So why is the age of 7 so important? We're going to get into a little psychology. By the age of 7, the brain reaches roughly 90% of its adult volume. And please listen close and take note of this. By age 7, the brain reaches roughly 90% of its adult volume, and it establishes its core neural architecture, or how the neurons are connected and how they fire. This is the architecture of your brain. While specific academic or professional facts are rarely retained from this period, so you may learn certain things, right? Certain things may not be retained, right? But the structural programming, or how neurons fire, or the architecture of your neurons, or the programming, right, of your emotional, social, and cognitive foundations serves as a lifelong blueprint for future development. I hope that makes sense. Let's read that again. By the age of 7, the brain reaches roughly 90% of its adult volume and establishes a core neural architecture. While specific academic or professional facts are rarely retained from this period, the structural programming of your emotional, social, and cognitive functions serve as a lifelong blueprint for future development. What does that mean? It means that everything that you learn from conception until the age of 7 years old is programmed into you emotionally, or the blueprint. Your brain has been created or structured a blueprint of how you will react and respond emotionally, socially, and cognitively, and serves as a lifelong blueprint for future development. Now, I could probably teach an entire hour lesson on this paragraph in and of itself, and we can go deep into all these things. Right? This is really important. Okay, this is why I say, or how I got to the point of, when I talk about baseline, how we are raised deserves its own entire section, right? Parents, how we are raised, how we raise our children, the people that we have around them serve as a blueprint. What is a blueprint? A blueprint is something that someone who's building, an architect or a builder, would follow in order to create a house or a building or a bridge or something of that nature. It is a blueprint that they will follow, right? By the age of 7, we have created a lifelong blueprint. Who creates this blueprint? Do we create it as the person, as a child? Do you think a child understands what the heck is going on? Absolutely not. Who provides this blueprint? Their parents, your religious leaders, the aunts, the uncles, the friends that you have around children, all these things, right? You've ever said or heard the term, be careful what you say around him. Right now, he's a human recording machine. Have you ever heard that term before? I know I have. I heard it as a child. I've said it as an adult, as a parent, right? Children then at this time learn emotional regulation. Early interactions establish your baseline for empathy, trust, and how you handle stress as an adult. Language acquisition, and these are just, this is the tip of the iceberg. These are just a couple that I like, right? The ability to naturally mimic accents and perfectly tuned phonemes close around puberty. But the syntax required by age 7 forms the basis of all native communication. Like, if you ever wondered, like, as an adult, how does a child learn Russian? I don't know Russian. How do they know what these things mean? They're mimicking what they see and what they hear around them, right? The multiplier effect. Economists and psychologists describe this as self-productivity. The baseline capabilities, there's that word again, the baseline capabilities you build, such as curiosity, resilience, and communication, become the tools required to learn all future capabilities. What you learn, what you are around prior to the age of 7 serves as a blueprint for your entire life. And it is very difficult to change and adjust this. Stay with me. I'm going to bring this home. I promise. Everything that you learn, the way that you eat, the way that you manage stress, the way that you talk, everything prior to the age of 7 is learned, and it is given to you by someone else. You think that there's certain things that you like and enjoy. You think that's because you like it? No, it is a program that was subconsciously installed into your brain, into the architectural fibers, the neurons, right, in your brain that you think are yours, but they're really not. Think back to the story I told you in the beginning. You think I didn't tell you that story on purpose? What did I say? I said I always wanted to be a teacher. I did, as long as I can remember. I wanted to be a teacher. And guess what? I ended up teaching. Is that because Stephen really wanted to be a teacher? Or is that because I had an architectural program that was implanted in me subconsciously, not even intentionally, because I saw others around me that were teachers? And then now I just created that, and now it's like, oh, this is what I've always wanted. But is it really what I want? Oh, let's keep going. All right. You absorb an estimated, an estimate, it's 50 million, I believe. I believe it's 50 million. Let's just say you absorb an estimated 50 million neural connections per second before kindergarten. This rapid learning is facilitated by high neuroplasticity. Plasticity, right? Neuroplasticity is your ability for the brain to make adjustments, right? That's what's neuroplasticity. When you're younger, your brain and your neurons are much more malleable, or they can change and adjust much more easier. As you grow and you become an adult, that plasticity begins to go away. It's the same thing with like cartilage, right? With babies, right? If you think about a baby and you lift the baby up and you put their legs behind their head and you do all these things to babies, they're like jelly. You can twist them and turn them any kind of way. It's probably one of the most flexible you'll ever be in your entire life is when you're a baby, right? Why? Because most of their body is cartilage. The cartilage has not solidified into bone, into hard, dense bone as we are as adults, right? So think of it that way. Your brain is the same way. It has this neuroplasticity that allows it to grow and take shape, right? And everything that you're learning prior to this point is adjusting the neuroplasticity, right? This rapid learning is facilitated by the higher neuroplasticity, meaning the brain soaks up information like an absolute sponge. However, as you age, your prefrontal cortex matures and learning requires more conscious effort. This happens at about age 5, right? So if you want to teach a child double languages, it's best to do it before age 5. It's easier to teach a child English and Korean, English and Spanish, or 3 languages, whatever, before age 5, or even just in general before 7. It'll be much easier for them to learn because they have so much more neuroplasticity than adults. Why is all of this important? Like, Stephen, you gave us a lot of good information about the body. How does this relate to fasting? How does any of this stuff tie together? Well, that's good. I'm glad that you asked, because I'm going to answer that. Who you are, the way that you think, how you process emotions, like how you cope with stress, fear, love, happiness, sadness, grief, guilt, jealousy, right? I mean, all these things. Interesting that you saw a couple good ones in there too, right? Love, happiness, right? People think that you only have to cope with negative emotions. That's not true. You also have to cope with positive emotions as well. How many times have you seen somebody that was super, super happy and they cried? That's coping. Are they sad? No. There's so much emotion that they end up crying. And it's a good thing, right? The reasoning behind everything you do is cemented before you truly even have a say-so in your own life. Take a second and soak that in. I hope y'all are getting this. I really want you to understand what this means. You think that you are who you are because that's who you want it to be, or that's who you've decided that you're going to be. Unless you have made conscious, right? What does it say? Learning requires more conscious effort after about age 5. Your frontal cortex, your prefrontal cortex matures, and learning becomes more conscious. A lot of times when you're in school and all these things, a lot of times, man, you're not really paying attention. So much learning happens, and it is going into your subconscious. If you want to learn and make changes, it has to be conscious. In my intro, it talks about being aware. It talks about awareness. How can you make changes if you aren't even aware that change needs to be made? Everything that you've done your entire life, all of your decision making, how you resolve things, all these things are cemented before you have even a say-so. Before you have decided this is how I want to live my life, these things are then gathered and created from the people around us, people that you may not even remember, people in your life that influenced you 35, 40, 50 years ago, however it was when you were 5 years old or even before. Your parents, they have cemented these things in you, and you didn't even have a say-so. The culmination of most people's lives, or that of others that were around them when they were growing up. Why is that important? You may be dealing with weight. You may be dealing with emotional eating. You may be dealing with all these things. And guess what? Believe it or not, you didn't even realize it's not even your fault. But now as an adult, and now if you've heard this, you have to understand it's now your responsibility to consciously make those changes. Accountability. When we talk about your why, talked about this a little bit ago. We're not going to get super deep into it, but when we talk about your why, right, is it truly your own? Why do you want to lose weight? When I ask that question, what's the first thing that comes to mind? Why do you want to lose weight? Is that really why you want to lose it? Or is this an old subconscious program running in the background? Now, let's go a little deeper. When you're talking about weight loss, or when we're talking about health, being healthy and being at a normal BMI, or whatever it is that you want to get to as far as your weight goes, that's baseline. That should be like, you should look at that and say, this is my starting point. That's not the pinnacle. That's your starting point. That's you as a seed breaking through the ground. And then now after you've broken through the ground, you can now flourish. And then now you have these fruits that you can now give and share with others around you. Until you can break baseline, what are we doing? Right? Now in the R72, you're going to get some of this, you're going to get more of this information about your why. If you don't know how to create that, we're going to talk about it in the R72, right? But it's important to understand the why of what you do, because it will drive you and everything that you do from here on out. When you understand why you do certain things, when you understand that when you that you react to certain things a certain way, when you understand that a lot of those reactions and a lot of why you do things are then based upon the things that you learn between 0 and 7 years old from your parents and from those around you. When you start to understand these things, now you can then look back and say, well, this isn't even who I want to be. It's who I am, but it's not who I want to be, right? As we grow from child age, our why is learned. It's not something that we have created ourselves. We learn it from others, right? We learn from our parents, our family members. We don't know why we do the things that we do. We just do them because that's how our parents did them. We develop traditions based upon what our parents did before us, right? The different habits that bring us positive things in our life or negative things in our life are learned behaviors. The important part is to understand that and simply adjust, right? I say simply because it is simple. It's just not easy. It's going to take time, energy, and effort, but adjust so that it aligns with your why or who you want to be now as an adult. If there are things that are happening in your life, if there's parts of your life that you're like, I don't want to do this. I don't want to be like this. I don't want this to continue in my life. This is what we would call cognitive dissonance. Part of it, right? Cognitive dissonance is psychological discomfort you feel when your actions, beliefs, or values contradict each other. You have this habit that you've grown up with, this subconscious programming that has been in your life your entire life. And now as an adult, you see life differently. You've grown and you're like, man, I don't want to do this, but why do I keep doing it? Cognitive dissonance, right? Your actions, your belief, they contradict themselves. You believe you do something else or one thing, but your actions contradict themselves. You're living in cognitive dissonance. You know it's wrong, or you know it's not the way that you want to do things, but yet you keep doing it. Why? You have this internal programming that has been placed inside of you. By no means of it, no one's done this intentionally to harm you, but it's just understanding that that's what happens. And now that you have an understanding of that's what has happened, how do we move out of this? People have this natural of mental harmony, this natural craving for mental harmony, right? This tension drives us to subconsciously justify our behaviors, alter our beliefs to resolve the uncomfortable feeling, right? There will be times where then we will then. I want to give you an example, a national example. We're almost done here. I want you to think of the body positive movement, body positivity movement, right? And I think that, I think that the movement in and of itself was actually damaging and harmful, right? Obviously, I think that we should all strive to be better. We should all work to find ways that we love ourselves, right? I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. But the movement in and of itself on a social and national level is bad. And it was literally national cognitive dissonance. And if you have an understanding, if you can put two and two together, you'll see this in all different types of ways in our world today. There's a lot of it going on, right? Where we will then set our own pride, our own beliefs, our own values aside, and then just say, you know what? I agree with these people, just to resolve the uncomfortable feeling of the cognitive dissonance that we feel. Right? There's nothing wrong with looking at yourself in the mirror and saying, I need to make an adjustment. Right? That doesn't mean you need to hate yourself, right? And then loving yourself does not mean that I don't need to make changes, right? You can love yourself and still say, you know what? I need to make a change. Because what is love? Love is not always ooh, Louie gooey, da 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 da, right? Sometimes love is hard. Sometimes love is letting people fail. Sometimes love is doing the hard thing. Sometimes love is looking in the mirror and saying, you know what? I need to join this R72 because I'm struggling and I don't know where to go. Sometimes love is saying, I need to sacrifice and sign up for coaching because I'm not doing something right and I've been trying to do it on my own and I just can't get there, right? Yeah. Are you going to take away from your finances and other things in your life? Maybe. Right? Maybe it's the last little bit that you have and you're like, but I know that this is going to work out for me and I'm going to give it 100%, right? Sometimes it's taken away from one thing so you can give yourself in another way. That's love. And you have to figure that out, right? But you can't live in just cognitive dissonance and just say, oh, everything's going to be okay. It's not okay. You can't be morbidly obese and say, oh, I'm healthy. No, just because you don't have any physical disease that you know of, I can promise you this: you're not healthy. I was not healthy at 400 pounds. I really wish I put a picture in here to show y'all. Right? It's just no, it's just not it. And I'm 6'4". I didn't look for 100 pounds, but I wasn't healthy by any stretch of the imagination. So how does this help? How does the R72 help? I want you to bring your attention to a small almond-shaped structure in the brain's temporal lobes. Its primary function is processing emotional responses. Okay? It's called the amygdala. Okay? Particularly fear, anxiety, and aggression, but also other things, right? But all other emotions. It evaluates environmental threats, orchestrates survival instincts like fight or flight response, and it attaches emotional weight to memories. Okay? If you see that in pink, that means it's important, right? The amygdala also does something very interesting. One of the things that it also does is that when you begin to make changes, it doesn't like change. Okay. Specifically the amygdala, right? All the time, well, a lot of times you'll hear me say the human brain doesn't like change. That's absolutely true. And this is another lesson I taught at another time. But the brain doesn't like change. The body does. The body is very flowy. It's like water. It'll change with you. It'll rock and roll. It don't care, right? It's the body's a ride or die. All right. It's like that friend that's like, hey, I'm down with you for anything and everything. The brain's like, I would rather just keep doing what we've been doing. Right. The amygdala, because it has the power to influence your emotions, and it is the processing center of emotional responses, and it attaches emotional weight to memories, the amygdala can and will cause physical, mental, and emotional symptoms and distress in order to keep you from making changes. Did you hear that? The amygdala specifically will cause physical, emotional, and mental distress in order for you to stop making changes. It does not like change. One of the things that causes the alarm to go off is sudden change, right? Big changes all at once. It does not like it. Have you ever thought about, you may be sitting here and be like, man, I was so excited, and Steven started talking about the R72. People are in the chat, they're talking about they're joining, they haven't lost weight, they want to lose weight, yada yada yada, this and that. And then now you're sitting there and you're thinking about, man, the last time I fasted, I didn't get through the process. And then now over time it starts weighing on you. What does that last sentence in pink say? Attaches emotional weight to memories. What is doing this? The amygdala. It is literally trying to get you not to make changes or try that change again, because it does not like change. You think that the things that you are feeling and thinking are of your own. They are not. If you've tried it before, try it again, but do it right. Why is it not done right? Because a lot of times people will skip steps and they don't go through the R72 process the way that they should go through it, or the way that we teach it. They want to do it their own way. And because they did it their own way the first time, they will attach this emotion to it, say, oh, well, R72, I failed at it. Well, you failed at it because you tried to do it your way, because you decided you wanted to make a change to the program instead of following the program the way it was laid out, right? The program is laid out very intelligently in order to get around this. What allows the amygdala to change? Slow moving changes. Helps calm and physically reshape the amygdala by shifting away from fight or flight reactions. Here comes this word again. You trigger neuroplasticity to improve emotional regulation and strengthen overactive amygdala. Wait a minute, Steven. So that means that we can go back to our 5-year-old brain? Yes. Not literally, but yes. you trigger a level of neuroplasticity, specifically in the amygdala, which now allows you to reshape it. Oh, see, you have a little power now, right? But you don't get to use that power all at once. You gotta move slow, right? This is where we have to play a little mind games, right? Well, how does this work with the R72? We go through fasting prep. We start off slow. The first day, all we have you doing is skipping breakfast. That's day 1 and day 2. It's super easy, right? If you're used to waking up and jumping out of bed, you run downstairs, you turn the coffee pot on, you throw some bagels in the little thing in the toaster, and you throw some cream cheese on it, and you sit down, you have your coffee, you eat your cream cheese, and you take a shower, right? You're like, all we're doing is skipping that, right? The amygdala it don't pick up on it yet, right? And then we move into a process where now we start to decrease the amount that we're eating, right? We start to make some adjustments. We stop eating as much processed food, right? We're just doing little things here and there, and the amygdala doesn't pick up on it, right? So you don't get that kickback. The R72 process in and of itself is a slow and short fasting process. It gets you started with fasting, right? I love to look at the R72 like an entry point to fasting. It really is. Because when you really want to lose, when you're talking about losing 100, 200 pounds of weight, you're going to start moving into those 15, 20, 30 days of fasting. I've done a 65-day juice fast. The most favorite fast I've ever done. Hand to God. My favorite fast. It was the longest I did. Juice fast. Just as a heads up, we're probably going to be doing a juice fast at the end of the R72. Just FYI. I gotta, of course, work all the details with Chris, but it'll be. I've done them before, but it'll probably be really in the swing of summer, right? So if that sounds interesting to you, go ahead and get your juicer. We're gonna be doing juice fast shortly after the R72, right? But the process in the R72 in and of itself, we're doing a 3-day fast, a short fast, right? Anything over 3 days is considered long-term fasting. So it's a short fast. Do refeed doesn't really give the brain a chance to really understand exactly what's going on, but the body does, right? And then we go into a refeed process. What does this do? It allows us to slowly make adjustments. It allows us to trick that brain, that amygdala, that part that wants to stop us from making these changes, and we slowly adjust it to the thing that we desire to do. To the point that we are able to do now 5 days, now 7 days, and 10 days. And it's so much easier because the brain is not fighting against us, because we've slowly tricked it. We've lullabied it into following this road, right? Each one of the processes is designed to help us to reshape us slowly yet efficiently so we can make long-term changes. So these are the things that we're doing. Right. Tomorrow, this is part 1 of a 2-part session. Tomorrow, we're going to continue to talk a little bit about the amygdala, right? But we're going to put our mind at ease. And we're going to talk about maintaining your results after weight loss. Now, this is a lesson I have taught before. It's been a while since I talked about it on YouTube. But if you thought this was a powerful lesson, I guarantee you that tomorrow is going to be even more impactful for you. Okay. So that'll I just need to schedule it, but the lesson's already done. It's ready to go. But I just need to, like I said, I just need to schedule it. So I hope that tonight was impactful. I hope it was beneficial. I hope that you got a lot of information. I hope that some of these things started to make sense and there's some things that started to click. And I hope that it motivated you to join us in the R72. Not necessarily that I'm just like, join the R72, but like I really, for people that have joined and they have stuck to the process and they've stuck to the procedure and they've just been like, I'm going to do this. And no matter what, I'm not going to stop until the end of the challenge. You are going to have massive results. And then not only are you going to have great results, you are also going to find that mentally it's easier to make decisions and make changes with your diet, which is truly the cornerstone of health. Right? So feel free to to click in the link below and join us. Right? Make sure that you set your notifications so you get a notification for tomorrow's live, because this is really kind of a follow-up to tonight's, right? Because a lot of times, once again, we talked about the amygdala, we have this emotional weight behind us, right? Let's go back and look at it. We have this emotional weight behind us that we've lost weight and then we've regained it. And then there's this emotional weight that says, man, I don't even want to fast because every time I fast, I regain the weight. There's a negative connotation. There's a negative thought process that the amygdala has attached to this memory, and it stops you from wanting to fast again. And what I am attempting to do in this next video, or this part 2, is to relieve some of that with not only giving you an explanation of why weight regains happens, but also practical tips and tricks and tools so that way it doesn't happen again. All right. Let me see if I can answer some of these questions. I see there was like 4 of them. I'm not going to sit there and answer questions all night. I'm just going to be 100% honest. I got 4. I'm going to answer these right now. And then, we'll go from there. Can you tighten loose skin? Oh, sorry. Can you tighten loose skin doing an R72 or only during extended fast, like a 21-day fast? Great question. Any form of fasting will help loose skin. Now, I'm going to be 100% honest with you because that's how I am. If you already have loose skin due to weight loss surgery or loose skin due to, weight loss just doing traditional diet and exercise, fasting will help. Yes, it will, but it is a slower process. If you lost weight with fasting, you almost essentially will have no loose skin no matter the amount of weight you lose. Okay. But it will help. Obviously, longer term fasting is going to be better. But R72 will absolutely help, but it's a slower type of fasting because every 3 days you are breaking the fast and you're taking yourself out of autophagy. So it is a slower process, but it will work. Let's see. I'm concerned because I'm going out of the country July 4th. I think I should wait till I return and commit. I understand this wasn't a question, but I remember reading it and I didn't mark it. I'll say this. I disagree, right? Think about the amygdala again, right? What does it do? It attaches weight to our emotions, our processing emotion, particularly fear, anxiety. What did you just say? I'm concerned. There's a level of fear or anxiety around starting the fast because you're going out of town July 4th. And I think I should wait until I get back to commit. Sometimes you got to learn to strike while the iron's hot. Sometimes you have to learn to do things now while get it while the getting's good, right? Because you may come back because you have no idea what's going to happen on that trip. You may come back and you may be in a mood where you're like, I don't even care about fasting. I'm such in a great mood. I'm not even going to do it, right? Or something happens, or I'm not saying that I want something to happen or something will happen, right? I'm not saying anything crazy. I'm just saying mentally you might come back and be in a different mindset, right? Or you can start, you can join, right? And by July 4th, this is a 30-day program. We're almost going to be done. So, you're really not missing out on much by starting with the group and doing things as the group is doing them, right? But not only that, you get the experience, right? You get the tools and tips and tricks. And then now you can go out of town or you can go out of the country, and there are certain things that you can do. You can say, well, I want to maintain this weight loss. Steven's going to teach you how to maintain weight loss, right? I want to maintain this progress that I made. And it doesn't necessarily require fasting. Obviously, it's up to you. You got to make a decision on your own, but I would not suggest that. All right, last one. Does the R70? Oh, I already answered that. Oh, you typed it later. Okay, cool. All right, good deal. So that's it for this evening, guys. I hope that once again this was beneficial. Actually, I do want to answer this question real quick. Is R72 the ideal protocol for me for losing over 134 pounds? No. I'm just going to be 100% honest with you. Can you do it? Sure, you can, right? But you said ideal, and my answer to that is resounding no. It's going to because you have this burnout that comes when you fast over and over and over and over and over, and you fast for a long period of time, and there's a level of burnout that happens. So if you are, unless you're committed to, I mean, it may take you a year or more. I mean, there's really no way for me to tell because I don't know you enough. But there is a level of burnout that happens, and if you want to lose 134 pounds, I would, if it was me, if I was coaching you, I would start you off at an R72. I'd move you up to a 5.2, and then I'd move you into 10 to 14 days. All right, that's really if you want to lose a lot of weight, here's my secret, guys. I'm gonna give it to you. If you want to lose a lot of weight, 10 to 14 day periods of fasting is really your sweet spot. Okay, you don't need to do 21s, you don't need to do 30s. 10 to 14 days is your sweet spot. Okay, it's a little bit of a mix of massive long term, right? But it's not long enough where you go a month without fasting. Once again, I've done a 65-day juice fast. Can you imagine eating or going over 2 months and never eating? It's the craziest thing in the world mentally, right? So yeah, that's not what I would suggest, but it can be done. But I would be afraid you'd experience burnout. The live for tomorrow is probably going to be at 7. I haven't scheduled it yet. I'll schedule it this evening or early tomorrow, but it'll be a little bit earlier because I do have some other work that I need to do in the evening. So it might be 6. It's probably going to be around 6 o'clock Central, 7 Eastern. That's probably the time for tomorrow. Gotcha. I know exactly what you're talking about. This is very good. Thank you. I tried to join, but I'm not sure I was successful. Pay attention to your email. You should get a confirmation email. But you're more than happy to reach out at support@ahealthyalternative.org. Support@ahealthyalternative.org. Reach out and send them an email, or you can reach out to me if you are in the if you're in AJ community. Send me a message with your actual first and last name and your email address, and I can reach out and see if I can figure out if you got in or not. I wonder when we will have a fast for people that want to lose more than 100 pounds. I mean, well, here's the thing. I mean, there's no challenge that we're going to do ever that's going to be, here's an AJ challenge. I mean, we're talking about a 3 to 4 month challenge. It's going to take at least 3 months to lose 100 pounds, at least. There's not going to be one and like this. The one thing that we do have is the 80 and 90. So you can go into AJ communities and you can join that. It's not a challenge like this, but you can go into that and join. Now, there are people that have lost over 100 pounds doing challenges. What they've done is just joined each challenge. And then between challenges, they will either do like coaching, or they will follow a fasting protocol, or they'll just continue the protocol on their own till the next challenge. So that is something that people will do. But there's never going to be a challenge. Well, never say never, but as far as I can see, that's not going to happen because it's going to require a 3-month commitment from all the coaches, and the pricing of that would be astronomical. It would probably, I mean, it would probably be like $400, $500 a person. I don't know if it just makes sense logistically wise. The R72 is not it's not the best fit. It's not the best fit to lose 134 pounds. It's a good way to start getting into fasting and start your weight loss journey. I'm not saying that you cannot do it as well, right? Remember the question. Let me be clear. The question was, is this the ideal program to lose 134 pounds? And that answer is still no. It's not the ideal. Does that mean it can't be done? Absolutely, it can be done. That's not ideal, right? Ideal, as a wellness coach, has been doing this over 6 years, that has been helping people. And my last client that I had, probably my last major client, we were together for over 3 months. I mean, he lost 90 pounds, right? You need to get into that 10 to 14 day fasting range. And this is really going to help you really get off that weight. If you really want to lose 100 pounds as a coach, I'm telling you, you need to work into that 10 to 14 day range. Other than that, guys, we're done. So if you guys want to leave, for anybody, I mean, I guess if you're hanging out, you can hang out. But anyway, that's it. Yeah, I mean, I can go into this. We can go back and forth with this all day. I would not say the R76 is ideal. I'm telling you, I'm giving you the sauce. As I'm telling you, as a coach, how have I had clients that I've helped lose over 100 pounds? I'm telling you. Don't guess. I'm telling you, right? You need to get into that 10 to 14 day range. Other than that, you're going to experience fasting burnout because and it happens to everybody. You can burn out at 10 to 14 days, but you'll be so much far along from so much further along. But at the end of the day, the cornerstone is going to be your diet, right? Anyway, thank you, South Africa. Thanks for popping in. It's appreciated. If you guys have any issues joining the R72 challenge, don't forget to reach out. If you have any issues, if you're interested in coaching or anything right now, I do have my 30 and 60 day packages, 15% off. If you have Afterpay, if you want to use Afterpay, you can set up a payment program and you can make it in payments. And I mean, it's not super expensive, but it's just something to help people. Just you can send me an email, and it's all in the link in the description. So, so yeah, if you guys have any other questions, reach out. Let me know. Other than that, hope you guys all have a great rest of your evening. If you had questions, I didn't answer them, show up for part 2 tomorrow. I'll do my best to try to answer some more of those questions for you. But this got way longer than I wanted to. But anyway. Hope you all have a great rest of your night. Thanks for being here. And as Chris always says, the application of knowledge is power. And I'll see you guys next time. Peace.
I